everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Night. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff,
Yes, sir.
what's new?
Well, there's a lot of things new, but I don't think we should talk about them. I think we should find
Yeah,
we should
yeah,
find a more palatable subject.
yeah, yeah. So, you've hosted parties before,
I have, in fact, as
and
have you. We've
yes,
both attended parties at each other's homes.
yes, we have. And I think um, uh, uh, populating a party with a good mix of people who are interesting and are congenial,
Yes.
affable companions
Hmm.
um, is I think there's a certain skill to that.
I
But
agree.
I was reminded of the television program that we've mentioned before called Meeting of the Minds,
Yes.
created by and hosted by Steve Allen, the TV host, actor, raconteur, composer, musician, interesting fellow, in which he had four historical figures at a table, and they discussed philosophy and events,
Hmm.
just the things. And it was a very interesting glimpse into history. The actors were very good at portraying the characters, but it got me thinking about, out of all of history, who would I invite to a dinner party if I had all of history to choose from? And
And it,
so, yeah.
and I have over the years had this sort of running, nothing formal, mind you, but um, in my head, this sort of idea that if I were emperor, if I could command anyone to attend me at a dinner party, who would it be? Who would I invite? And um, but not such a formal dinner party like a state type dinner,
Hmm.
um, but a smaller sort of informal where everyone could converse and share ideas and stories and whatever. Um, which
Years ago, well, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Well, which is different. Another thing we could consider, which would expand the list, is a cocktail party.
Yes. And I think that's probably more what I'm thinking about, because I want the people to be able to interact, and I want to be able to interact with them. Um, Now, years ago, I saw a quite remarkable art project called The Dinner Party by
Oh,
an
yes.
artist named Judy Chicago. And it was a triangular, open triangle, very large table with
Oh,
open
I'm familiar with
center.
the piece. Yeah.
And there were place settings, and each place setting, and it was through time. Each place setting was a historical woman, and it was a joint project. She conceived of it and directed it, but there were ceramicists making the plates, weavers making the placemats. It was really extraordinary. And the tile floor and platform of this had the names of a lot of other women of
Hmm.
that era. It was really quite remarkable. And I thought, well,
And
that would be really interesting if they were all together and talking. They were very different.
it was
Um,
also quite controversial at the time for the pieces that she used as the table
well,
setting. Not so much as
the plates were um uh
they were
and
abstracted female genitalia.
and some less abstracted than others.
That's true.
So
True.
yes. Um so
And that's where the triangle came from and all
Yeah,
of that.
it was really quite a remarkable piece. Um, Actually, there's a fellow we could talk about sometime, who an artist who posts videos of what he refers to as bullshit contemporary
Oh.
artists, and it's very interesting. But this does not fall in that category. Um, but so a dinner party, a cocktail party, let's say.
And Speaking of cocktails,
Yes.
before we launch into our lists, our respective lists, what are you drinking?
Well, keeping it simple tonight, I have a glass of Primitivo.
Ah.
It's Italian red wine. It is pretty basic red wine, but how about you?
I have again one of my sort of go-to. It's a 1792 bourbon with the last dregs of a uh, uh, old-fashioned pre-mixed old-fashioned uh,
Oh, well,
thing. Just hardly enough to even flavor it, and because I was just finishing off what was left in the little bottle, and then I added some cherry maple smoked bitters and some Fever Tree ginger beer, which is just like my go-to home cocktail. So,
okay. Well, here's to you.
cheers.
So as I was thinking about this, I had categories of
Ah, all
now
right.
I think it would also be interesting who we wouldn't invite.
That list is
Um,
so long, though.
yeah, it really is. It really, really is. Um, I'm happy to go first here.
Okay.
And the first people I would invite would be my parents
Hmm,
and um, my father's parents. Um,
interesting.
so my parents, who as I mentioned before, my dad passed away when I was a senior in college. Um, my mom, gosh, it's been more than 30 years. And it would be great to see them again. But his father, my grandfather, whom I'm named after, I never met. And I have a cousin, older cousin, who met him once when he was very young and bounced him on his knee, um, and said he looked like Einstein, which would be interesting.
Okay.
And my grandma, my father's mother, I met only a couple times, and she was already very old and living in a retirement home. So I think it would be interesting to meet them when they were younger. And so those are people I would invite. Now, having done some little bit of genealogical research, there are people going back that I would invite,
Hmm.
who I think would be really interesting. Now, I didn't include specifically my mother's parents, who I knew when I was young, and yeah, yeah, I'm much more interested, in some of the other side of the family, but also on my mother's side of the family, going further back, some of those. And so those are some people I would invite. And in the mix of that, I'd invite current family, cousins on
Hmm.
both sides of the family to meet. That would be a really interesting mix, I think.
I don't. I, I think it might be interesting for me to observe members of my family amongst the guests that I would invite, but I think they would be at sea, absolutely
Mm,
uncomfortable and out of their element amongst the people that I would wish
yeah.
to speak to. So they
I
were not
think
included.
I think one thing we have to assume for this is that we have some sort of universal translator, um, a la Star Trek, to translate languages and over time and such, because that
Well,
would be a
I,
challenging.
as it happens, my I did not consider that so much. There's only one person in my list, and you've got categories. I've split my list into a historical list, people who I could call back from history,
Hmm.
and then another list, another party. Although I suppose you could, if it was a cocktail party, you combine them together, of of people who are living now that I
Oh, okay.
could invite. That so yeah, they're different, but I'm sure you'll recognize similarities as we go through them. But
Okay.
most of my list, I did not consider the universal translator thing, except for one. Most everybody that I would invite are Western English speaking.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hear some of yours.
Well, my historical list starts with Bertrand Russell,
Okay.
and I also did an even mix of men and women.
Okay.
Just because, like I said, I considered this a sitting down at a table, and I my list goes only to 12 because I thought that was about the limit that which everybody could interact at the table with each other.
Okay.
That I
I
didn't.
s-
The idea of a cocktail party is would allow you to circulate and join different groups and whatever, but I wanted everybody sitting and facing and hearing everyone speak. Everyone heard everyone else all the time. So Bertrand Russell and my second one was Hedy Lamarr.
oh yeah. Okay. She's on my list too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll
Okay.
probably see
Yeah.
some overlap.
Yeah. Such an interesting person. Um, and with that, so I had a list of actresses,
Okay.
and Diana Rigg, Judi Dench, Helen Mirren, and Maggie Smith, circa 1967.
Oh, so going back to them in all of them in 1967.
Yes.
All right, that would be interesting.
So I don't know if you ever saw the film version of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
The one with Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren, Judi Dench, and Diana Rigg in it.
I don't remember Judi Dench being in that, but okay.
Judi Dench played Titania.
Oh,
Yeah.
there was a okay. All right.
Now I the actors were the cast was brilliant. The director, unfortunately, was enamored of the style of filmmaking of that era. So I think sometimes the camera work interfered with the storytelling. So,
Oh,
but,
okay.
um, yeah, and I add, Hedy Lamarr and, um, I would also put in there, um, hang on a second, um, 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 from, um, from The Thin Man,
Oh, uh,
um,
uh, uh, bloody hell.
Myrna Loy, Myrna
Yes,
Loy,
yes.
Myrna Loy, who from The Thin Man, and um, I would also put in Maureen O'Sullivan, who was in the first Thin Man movie, but was
Really?
also Jane to Johnny Weissmuller's Tarzan.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Hmm. Okay. Um, and my list then goes to Teddy and Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay, yeah, yeah. Eleanor Roosevelt, terrific. And uh, I would also add Golda Meir.
Yeah, I thought of there were what you probably have a greater depth of knowledge of Golda Meir and her um, personality and
Hmm.
readings and everything. I again, when I thought about this, is I wanted people who would be interesting to have a drink with, not just people that I found fascinating historical characters,
Okay.
but also that, like you said, that would make a congenial group.
Yeah, and I don't know, and I'm not sure that I have any way of knowing if these people would be congenial or not. Um, um, I think Golda Meir was so fascinating in so many ways, so smart
Mm.
and so tough and so interesting. I think that's somebody I'd like to talk to. So I wasn't thinking about them talking to each other as much as how much I would like to talk to them. So, um,
So who else is on your list?
um, so I've got some philosophers. You mentioned Bertrand Russell.
Hmm.
I would say Spinoza.
Okay.
Um,
I'm not as
and
familiar with him as.
um, when Einstein was asked if he believed in God, he said he believed in the God of Spinoza.
Oh, yeah, I remember that quote.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Okay. So what is Spinoza's God like?
the Spinoza's God is manifested in all the world around us and everything we see
Oh,
and the
okay.
laws of nature
A
and so on.
deist sort of God.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Um, and also Marcus Aurelius,
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah. I'm
because
not
that
sure
would
how.
be interesting listening to the two of them. I think would be fascinating. And Bertrand Russell, throw him in the mix. Yeah.
Right, right. Again, some of these
Um,
like conquerors, I thought I don't I mean there's a personality type there. There's got to be. And while I might be interested in sitting down with them individually, I'm not sure I'd want them at the party.
yeah.
If you get
Yeah.
my
I get your drift. Yeah. Because they, yeah, there's some philosophers who'd be, and certainly some, there's like, yeah, there's some who'd be a drag, I think, at a party.
well, and I think some would be too too big for the kind of
Okay.
party. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Their
like
personalities might be too
I would
big.
also like, I'd like Buckminster Fuller. Um,
Not a partier from what I understand so
but
much, but
I wouldn't want Edison or even Tesla because
yeah, I
right.
agree.
Yeah.
Well,
Buckminster,
Edison was a bombast and Tesla a painful introvert. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
And yeah. But Buckminster Fuller was could be quite expansive. I actually heard him speak.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the year after my graduation, undergrad, I stayed to do an additional quarter for my student teaching
Okay.
to get certified, and then I hung around, and so I got a ticket to see the next commencement the year after I graduated, because some friends were graduating, and the speaker was Buckminster Fuller.
Cool.
Um, yeah, the speaker my year was Newton Minow. Newton Minow, former head of the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, who coined the phrase a vast wasteland, referring to television,
Oh, okay.
and was a graduate of
Interesting.
Northwestern.
Not
Um,
exactly a figure striding through history, but
no, he did say none of you will remember anything I say here, which I remember, thereby proving him wrong. Um, but Buckminster Fuller I went to see, but the acoustics and the sound system was so bad in this giant hall
uh,
that I could only make out like every third word of what
oh,
he was saying, which was really disappointing.
and
Um,
kind of ironic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I'd include Buckminster Fuller in
All
the.
right. All right. I've got and these are the historical ones. I've got the historical list first, so I'm going through that first. Abraham Lincoln and Calamity Jane.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, uh, Calamity Jane.
Right? I
Yeah, she
mean,
would be
fun at
really.
parties.
Oh, she knew how to party. Yeah. Wow. Um,
The stories
yeah.
that she
Oh,
could
yeah.
probably tell, I think would be amazing.
Now we are sticking with actual figures, not literary figures.
Oh, well, yeah,
Yeah, which would be a completely different, maybe that's another one, who we
sure.
would invite out of literature. But yeah, Calamity Jane. Um, yeah, that'd be good. Who was the other one you mentioned? Just mentioned?
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Oh
who
yeah,
who
of
wouldn't want to
course.
talk to Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, exactly. Um, I also had artists on the list. Um, so
Yeah, and I thought I entertained a few artists also, but some of the greatest artists throughout history were kind of assholes.
well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Well, it's interesting. Would you invite Caravaggio?
Well, and there
Because,
again, I don't know enough about what personality he was.
well, he was kind of an asshole,
Okay.
could party, but he had to move because he got into fights and he may have killed
Right.
somebody and it's like, oh, he is not the guy you
Yeah.
want at a party. No, it's a fight will break out, and Lincoln will have to take him down and it's gonna be really bad.
Well, the
Um,
same with Michelangelo, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I would invite Leonardo da
okay.
Vinci, Giovanni Bellini, who painted one of my favorite paintings, painting of St. Francis, and was part of a family of artists.
Hmm.
Edward Hopper, whose work I
Interesting.
really like. It's so evocative of the era that he was working, the
Oh, yeah.
mid 20th century.
Yeah, like
Va yeah,
iconic paintings.
Vasily Kandinsky, who was
One of the abstract,
yes,
just not quite a surrealist, but a
well, I would say he was
proto-surrealist, maybe.
no, not more abstract expressionism, but he was one of the few abstract expressionists that I actually give a shit about. Um,
Okay.
he was part of the Bauhaus
Yeah.
before it had to move out of Germany. Um, he had works that his work was very evocative of the music of the time. So he had works he called compositions and some he called improvisations.
Yeah.
And when I look at them, I can hear the music. So it's
Hmm.
really interesting, and he'd be fascinating to talk to. Um, I debated about this one, Salvador Dali, because I think he'd be interesting at a party if he didn't try to make it about himself.
Right.
But if he did, I could always have asked Lincoln to toss him out on his
Was Lincoln on
mustache.
your list as well?
Oh yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
could have Lincoln toss him out on his mustache. So,
Okay. By his mustache.
yeah. Um, but I also wanted Camille Claudel. Camille Claudel was the paramour of Rodin, but
Oh.
she was a brilliant sculptor on her own,
Hmm.
but got really sidelined by Rodin. And so I'd like to have her there. And Artemisia Gentileschi,
Okay.
who
Not familiar.
was one of the most accomplished female painters,
Okay.
period, of the Renaissance. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant work. At a time when women were sidelined from doing that. Um, so there's so many, but that's a partial list.
I mean,
So
you could do a cocktail party of just artists,
yeah,
like a gallery setting type of thing.
yeah, absolutely. That would be really, really, really interesting. Um,
Not to sidetrack, but have you seen? There's a clip I've seen on YouTube, and I think it might be from a movie, or no, maybe a Doctor Who episode where Van
yes,
Gogh
Van Gogh. Um,
goes to a gallery showing his paintings.
yes. So that I really, really like that episode. Doctor Who and Amy and his companion at the time, go back in time because she wants to meet Van Gogh. And it turns out he can actually see aliens and see stuff that people can't otherwise see, which
Hmm.
is he has this ability to see that. So it informed his paintings, but it also caused him all kinds of trouble mentally. But they bring him, he's full of self-doubt. They bring him using the TARDIS to present day to a
Yeah.
showing of a retrospective of his work. And Doctor Who asks the head of the
Curator.
gallery, yeah, who's played by Bill Nighy,
Yes.
asks him what he thinks of Van Gogh, and he says how wonderful he is
Yeah.
and what he
One of
did.
the
And
most, if not the most important
yeah,
artist.
and it so touches him, and Amy is hoping that this will help him, but it ends up, you know, can't change history. And
Right.
but yeah, that was really cool. Um, but he would I thought about him, but he would take so much energy
Yeah.
to deal
It would be
with
a real
at
drag.
at a party. He would
You're a genius,
so
man, but you really know how to bring down a
yeah,
party.
exactly. Um, so who else would you
Wyatt Earp and Dorothy Parker.
oh my God.
No, I mean, I'm listing
Wow.
them as pairs only because I'm getting a male and a female, but
Wow.
I don't expect them to come together.
Well,
But
Wyatt Earp would be really interesting. Um, um,
again, just the stories.
he and Lincoln could be the bouncers, but
All
uh,
right, I think Teddy
Dorothy,
Roosevelt
oh
would be
yeah, yeah.
willing to step in there
Well, I
too.
could see the three of them just hitting it off.
Yeah,
Um, Dorothy Parker and that whole the Algonquin
Algonquin group.
roundtable, yeah, brilliant. Wow. As long as I mean, um, her witticisms, her barbs would be absolutely fascinating to hear her observations about the party and about other people and stuff.
Well,
Could be
I
it
think
would
what
add
sort
an
of
element of spice to the to the
well, but see,
gathering.
but she's just witty, and her barbs are what survive her most.
Yeah.
But most of those were provoked
Yes.
or where
Yes.
she was being paid to be a critic.
Yes.
So I think that her wit could also be employed positively in a social setting, and probably
Hmm.
was. It just wasn't, she didn't get paid for it. It didn't get those didn't get published.
Right. Okay.
Anybody who's that smart and that witty has got to be a good conversationalist just in general.
Oh yeah, that would be really good.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, you can find her. That would be.
Oh, well,
No, yeah, also I considered her for my list also.
yeah. I think it should be really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Babe Dietrichson, she was a star golfer. So um a I think that was her name. The movie with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, Woman of the
Which
Year.
one?
Woman of the Year
Oh, okay.
um was in part based on her.
Hmm. All right.
Sort of, but informally. She was an athlete. She was track and field, golf, basketball, baseball, gold medalist, silver
Hmm.
medalist, track and field, um, uh, professional golf champion. She, I think, would be really interesting world record holder. Um, oh, I would also add Katharine Hepburn to my list.
Yeah, again, I somebody I would love to sit down
And
across
talk
the
with,
table
but
with,
she,
but she can be problematic in groups.
well, yeah, I suppose so. Um, any musicians on your list?
Uh, Sammy Davis Jr.,
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
the all-around entertainer, song, dance, comedy. The guy
Yeah.
could do it all, and
Fast
didn't.
gun, trick,
Yeah,
fast gun.
yep,
Yeah.
all that. But didn't have to be. But in his performances with the um, Rat Pack, doesn't have to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
an entertainer, but and watching movies about the Rat Pack, not by, but about the Rat Pack, you get a sense of Sammy Davis Jr. Trying hard to be one of the guys,
Yeah.
and it being very difficult in that time for a black man to be one of them
Yeah.
and not be. Uh, well, I don't think that the rest of the that group of people, Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford and those guys, thought of him as a token, but he was often viewed as a token.
Mhm.
But but I think he was absolutely amazing. And every interview I've ever seen him do, he was sharp and witty, and I've just always liked him as an entertainer. And I think it would be a good addition to a
Yeah.
party.
Um, I Frank Zappa.
All
Um,
right,
I don't know if you
another
ever,
ego, but
well, yeah, but brilliant. I don't know if you ever heard him on interview shows
oh
and
sure, yeah,
really, really interesting. Um,
his Senate appearances are amazing.
yeah, yeah. Um, I would also invite Dave Brubeck,
Okay,
who I actually got to meet. He played two sets when I was an undergrad. He was on tour with his sons.
hmm,
Fantastic. And I worked part-time as a stagehand when I was an undergrad, for a little bit of money, but mostly so I could see concerts.
sure.
And I was backstage and we were watching uh they videoed the first set and he was watching it and listening and then he turned to the rest of us and says, I have never played better. It's like, yeah, man, that was really good. Um, Dave Brubeck, he was really nice too.
No, good.
Um, I'd invite the Beatles because
At what
they're
point in their career?
um
Early
when
70s?
when no, when they're still getting along. So I'd
Right.
say
Before
Sergeant,
they became Hindus or whatever they.
they didn't read a book, okay? Um, no, they went to India, but they didn't. Okay, never mind. The Beatles, like Sergeant Pepper's era.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And I thought about Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin. Um, I think they'd be fun and interesting, but I wouldn't invite um Jim Morrison from the Doors
No,
because
no.
too, like you said, too big an ego. He had to be the center of everything. So, um,
Same with Freddie Mercury. I would have loved to meet him,
mhm.
but everything I've seen and every portrayal of him I've ever seen, he's kind of a dick.
I think he was insecure, I think was the problem.
Maybe
Um,
doesn't alter the behavior,
yeah.
but
And I think, well, similarly, if I invited Elton John,
mm,
it'd be Elton John today.
yeah, yeah.
We actually we were out at dinner and he was having dinner there. This was a couple of years ago. He was having dinner there. And people were coming up to him and he was signing autographs and taking pictures. And we thought, yeah, I'd really like to do that, but I don't want, he's being so nice already. I don't want to disturb his dinner and,
Sure.
um, so, I would also invite Barack Obama.
He's on my list of my
Okay.
current list. Yep.
Um, yeah, brilliant and would be great at a party and
Yep. Good sense
somebody
of
I'd,
humor.
yeah.
Really knows how to read people and a room. And
Yeah.
yeah. Yep.
Who,
Absolutely.
who else have you got?
Well, I've got a woman who I heard of. I remember hearing about years ago, and as I was doing a little research for this thing, um, a woman named Aspasia, who was one of the teachers of Socrates, a
Oh,
female philosopher who informed and taught Socrates himself.
okay.
And how can you find a philosopher, someone who taught Socrates? How interesting would that person be? And that's who I need the universal translator for. But um, there's very little history about her that I could find, but just the fact that she exists and people know her name and remember it as in association with Socrates was enough for me to say, "Oh, I need to talk to her."
Huh. Yeah, that would be fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and um, Oscar Wilde.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Him and Dorothy Parker.
Yeah,
Wow, that
right.
would be fantastic. Yeah. Um, I would also I was thinking about like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart.
Yes, I thought about both of them too.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
I think Patrick's, and I don't, no, I did not include him. I think both of them are a little, I don't think we could keep them up past 10 o'clock. So I'm, so I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I stay up past 10 o'clock. So
With these
yeah.
people, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, I would. Absolutely would. Um um I was going way back. Judah Maccabee.
All
Let
right.
so of the um the
Also a military
yeah,
personality.
rebellion that recaptured the temple throughout the um conquerors who, and it's the basis of the Hanukkah
Yep.
celebration, which Maccabee means hammer, is
Oh, right.
Judah the hammer. So if you remember the movie The Hebrew Hammer,
Yep.
where he saves Hanukkah, that was a joke. It was
Oh,
like Fred
okay.
the Hammer Williamson of the blaxploitation movies, but it
Right.
was also Judah Maccabee, Judah the Hammer saving Hanukkah. I mean, that was
Huh.
so it was an
Okay.
in
All
joke.
right.
So
I didn't get that level of the joke. I
yeah,
just, but I thoroughly enjoyed that
that
movie.
was a great movie. I really like that movie. Um, um,
I think you will like my last entry in the historical sort of category.
okay.
Kind of obscure, but absolutely fascinating. A woman named Ella Hatton, more commonly remembered as Jaguarina.
Oh yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Jaguarina, the most accomplished swords, not just woman, but
Sword person. Yeah.
person.
Modern, I
Yeah.
guess you could call her a modern swords person, but she fought with, well, I just because I'm sure most people haven't heard of her, I downloaded a tiny bit of
Hmm.
her biography. And she began training at 8 years of age, having first learned the foil and the knife from her mother, who was a Spaniard. She found someone named Monstery was her sort of mentor. acquired proficiency with saber and broadsword. She won vast majority of her contests after training for 3 years. Oh, he was a colonel. Monster, he was a colonel. After training for 3 years, she left to travel the world and became a sensation with foil, saber, broadsword, single stick, rapier, dagger, bayonet, lance, Spanish knife, bowie knife, defeating fencing heavyweights such as Sergeant Owen Davis of the U.S. Cavalry, famed knife duelist Charles Engelbrecht of the Danish Royal Guard. I mean, she, fencing master Ian Jennings of the Royal Irish Hussars. Um, she had later on in 1884, this is when she was around, she met up with her mentor and who'd moved his school of arms to Chicago. She reunited with him and they had a lively public fencing contest. In the contest, and this is written in the Los Angeles Times in 1887, in the encounter, at the end of 4 hours of a bout, neither of parties had gained a point and the combat was declared a draw.
Wow.
She defeated 60 men in contests on foot and on horseback. Um, Boston Daily Globe says she had met all comers in mounted contests and had never been defeated in a battle for general points. I mean, she was just amazing. And then in 1903, she says she carried scars on her face, arms, and body. Um, but in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, April 10th, it's going to be 1889. Um, a male reporter expecting to meet a fierce-faced Amazon, quotes, was shocked to find that Haddon exuded grace, refinement, and, as one put it, perfect self-control and sweetness. So, and that's half of
Why
what
hasn't there been anything
I don't
in,
know, but I know several women who are going to get a link to this
yeah,
Wikipedia.
yeah. Wow.
But anyway, so that was the last, and I saved her the best for last. I thought of
Yeah.
the
Well,
historical.
I thought of Mad Jack Churchill, who was in World War II, carried a sword
Yep, and a
to
bow and arrow.
and a bow and arrow. But I thought I'm like to meet
He
him, but I
he
don't
and
know.
Teddy would have gotten along.
Yeah, that's true. I also thought about Bodhidharma, who founded both Zen Buddhism meditation and also what became Kung Fu, which is why
Yes.
meditation and martial arts are connected. But he is described throughout the literature as being ill-tempered, which
Yeah.
is probably why he needed meditation. So I think he'd be kind of a drag at the party.
Right. Well, I mean, I thought of Musashi too, and for the
Yeah.
exact same reasons I rejected him.
I think Bass Reeves, though,
Yeah.
Bass
Interesting. Yeah.
Reeves, the first U.S. deputy marshal who had arrested uh, more um, criminals. He was like quite accomplished.
Yeah. Yes.
Bass Reeves. There's a movie about him, or
There's a
series.
couple of them
There's a
that
couple. I haven't watched the latest one, but um, which is supposed to be the best of the bunch because he's been depicted before in some things that were not very good. Supposedly the inspiration, I think, for the Lone Ranger. Um,
I heard that somewhere.
yeah, um,
But I had wondered why Idris Elba had not self-produced that movie
yeah,
already.
yeah. But yeah, he would have been good in it. I forget who's in the current version of it.
Hmm.
Um, um,
So who else you got?
Sidney Poitier.
Okay, interesting choice. Very good.
Um, and you mentioned Idris Elba, who I think would also be interesting, but I think Denzel Washington would be really interesting. Um,
Yeah.
um, so um, Yeah. Um,
I've got a few in my current, I'm moving into my current list now. I've got a few, I mean, they're celebrities of one kind or
yeah.
another.
Hmm.
Some actors and actresses, um, a couple of politicians. Um, I've got John Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Could be. Um, I,
Well, he seems
I,
personable,
yeah, he does.
but anybody who's an entertainer is going to have a certain amount of ego, and I'm prepared
Yeah.
for that.
Okay. I would, in a similar vein, choose Seth Meyers. Um,
Right,
but I actually have spoken with him before, interviewed him for my book, and he wrote the foreword for my book.
right.
And he was really nice. And in a similar vein, I would have Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is smart and really nice and really funny and um, also um, really cool. So
Yeah. I also included an American born living in Britain comic named Kathy Burke. I don't know.
I'm not familiar with her.
Um, she's appeared a few times on 8 out of 10 Cats. She did a short series where she was about sort of autobiographical, where she's a single mother, moved to Britain and sort of dealing with that as an American single mother living in London. You know, whenever I've seen her, she is remarkably witty. So
Mm.
I just included her. I'd also considered um, if I were mixing the two lists, Nikki Glazer,
Yeah,
seating
she's
her opposite Dorothy Parker and just
oh,
watching that go.
yeah. I thought about Robin Williams, but again, this is somebody who tends to take over a room rather
Right.
than
Like
mix
Jonathan
their
Winters.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, the two of them,
Well, they've
they,
appeared together and it was chaos.
yeah, but it was fantastic chaos on.
Yeah.
I think that when Johnny Carson was still hosting the Tonight Show, um,
May have been.
I think
Well, they
so.
did. Jonathan Winters appeared on the Mork and Mindy show.
Yes, but that was that later.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
after they got to know each other a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
yeah.
I included three politicians, current politicians that I think, and I had more on the list, but again, this is a party of people that I think would get along and be able to exchange ideas without it being a fist fight at some point. Um, Eric Swalwell, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC,
Okay,
and Jasmine Crockett
okay. Um, and I included Pete
and Barack
Buttigieg.
Obama.
Yeah, and I included also Pete Buttigieg,
Okay.
who used to live when he was mayor of South Bend, lived next door to my high school senior English teacher.
Oh, okay.
Um, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan.
Yeah, I'd rather have her all myself though at a dinner. I
Yeah,
think she's a fascinating person.
yeah. And Mallory McMorrow, who
Don't know her.
she is my state senator,
Okay.
and she's the Senate Democratic whip right now.
Okay.
And really, really sharp, fascinating, interesting. I remember when she was first running, she and someone else came to my door
Hmm.
and spoke with me. And she went door to door. I mean, she does the work. And she does uses social media, and she's very eloquent. And she came to national attention a few years ago when someone, one of her colleagues in the state Senate, accused her of grooming because she was advocating for LGBTQ rights and children and so on. And
And then,
response, her speech in
Oh,
response was,
now I know who you're talking about.
yeah, 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 it was sharp and smart and
Yeah, that went pretty viral years
yeah, it
ago.
did. And yeah. So yeah, I think she'd be great. Um
Other actors and actresses, um, Pam Grier, I think would be fascinating to
yeah,
talk to.
yeah.
Just again, living through the who was it who said I remember a quote that said called her the first female action hero.
I'm not sure that's yeah, maybe, but
Well,
um
what we would think of as a modern action hero, I think.
okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, and it's probably the Foxy Brown. Um,
Yeah,
the,
that sort of thing.
yeah, and but listen, I'd be interested in her stories of that whole sort of commonly referred to as the black exploitation
Hmm.
era, where she got her start. Uh, her first, her break, ironically, her breakout appearance was in The Big Bird Cage. A a that is a nothing but an exploitation film. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
women in cages. It is the first
Um,
women in cages movie. Set off that whole sort of subgenre for a few years. That was
wow.
the original one. Um, yeah. Um, I also put Hugh Jackman on the list.
Um, he's a really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I I would include Ian Holm,
Okay.
um, who I such range, so many diverse, such a wide range of roles. Um, I'd also include Simon Pegg,
Yeah, that would
who
be interesting.
is a writer and actor so he played he's well known for being in the Mission Impossible movies, but he's also been in Star Trek, the rebooted Star Trek, but he also wrote movies, the
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, was that
Yep.
the
Yep.
so he's a really interesting, smart, funny, um so yeah.
Um, I got Jennifer Lawrence.
She'd be probably fun at a party, but
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
She doesn't, from what see her in interviews, she doesn't take herself particularly seriously.
yeah. Okay,
Um, and is also witty and is able to, do a little back and forth with her interviewers and stuff. And I think that's that's worthy, I think, and it
okay.
provides a broader age range in the party that I was also kind of looking for. Um, and two sort of lesser celebrities. One, Ryan Stiles
Oh, okay. Yeah.
from the Whose Line Is It
Who's
Anyway
anyway? Yeah.
and other things. Just again, he doesn't have to be, in my experience with him
Mm.
and seeing him in interviews and parts, he doesn't have to be the center of attention all the time, but he's always listening and ready to come back with something.
Well,
He's an improviser.
yeah, and I've gotten to speak with and know a lot of people who are very skilled improvisers, and it's it's a real it I think it's something that that kind of training is useful for a lot of
Yeah.
people. And there are improvisers who actually use their improvisation. They teach in a corporate setting, they teach people how to
Yep.
do that and think on their feet. And I got to talk with Dan Patterson, who was the co-creator of Whose Line Is It Anyway,
Hmm.
for again, from my book. And this I'm really, really proud of this. He emailed me and asked me if I had time to Zoom with him. So I said, yeah. So we got on a Zoom call. He wanted to call just to tell me how wonderful he thought the book was.
Oh,
So
well,
I thought, well,
congratulations.
that
That's
thank you.
terrific.
That I thought that was really, really great. It made me feel really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, because that book was a lot of fucking work.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Years of work.
years. Yeah.
Um,
Um, well, so much for the what did you say, 12 people? We've probably got
well,
50
I had
people now.
two lists of 12 people
Okay,
each.
so yeah, and I
And there's
just
only a few left on my lists.
okay, go ahead, go.
Uh, a radio personality who I've just always just found great. I think he would be a good guy to hang out with. His name is Charles Dean Hayes, more commonly known as Chick McGee.
I
Uh,
have never heard of him.
FM radio, Bob and Tom show in the mornings.
I have
Um,
no idea who Bob and Tom are.
well, you're missing out, buddy, because I mean, the show itself is been around for decades. Different markets. They're I get him from the Toledo station 104.7, but
Okay.
he's a regular, and I just enjoy his personality and his wit and all that stuff. And my final entry, just because I could do it, is Catherine Zeta-Jones.
No. Okay. Okay. Well,
Very classy, very smart,
okay. Well, I
absolutely.
put in the four dames from the late 60s. So, um
Yes.
I think I would put in uh Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan, who played Merry and Pippin in
Oh, okay. All right.
Lord of the Rings. They have a podcast that I think is
Yes.
really, really fun. Um, so yeah,
So that's that's my list, and people will pop onto it and drop off of it. It's not this hard. I haven't kept this hard number in my head until we talked about doing this
yeah.
episode. But I've always had
Um,
this idea. Well, you know what? Yeah, okay. You hear some people say, um, "Yeah, you can come to the barbecue," right? Kind of yeah, you're all right. I think you've impressed me. I think you'd fit in with my people, so you can come
yeah,
to the barbecue. And this is kind of the way I have always thought of that. It's not a
yeah,
hard number.
yeah.
There's not this, absolute limit. It's just in my
Well, and
head.
I think there's a difference between how many and who you invite to a sit-down dinner party, to a cocktail party, and to a barbecue,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And damn, I want to have a party now.
All right. I'm always
Yeah,
up for a party.
yeah, yeah. I want it to be warm though. So, well, yeah. I think this would be really interesting, and I think the criteria, it makes me think about coming back here to our central theme, the
Hmm.
virtues. What
Hmm.
does it take to be somebody who would be a welcome guest at one of these things
Yeah.
and one of these get-togethers? And we mentioned several times people who um, would tend to want to take over, would be the want to be the central focus of this, would not be displaying humility, the
Right.
virtue of humility, because they wouldn't be comfortable being one of the guests. They would want to be the guest of honor. They would want to be the central focus
Right.
of the event. And I think that's interesting. Do you want to get invited to a party? Well, that's, you
Be a
know,
good guest.
be a good guest. Yeah. Have interesting things to say, be a good listener, ask good questions, Um, I remember once I was being interviewed for a job, um, and this guy was odd. He was meeting people for lunch to do interviews. I think he didn't want to do them in the office, and I think he wanted to get a expense, be able to expense his lunch.
Okay.
So we met, and he started talking, and I realized pretty quickly that he was more interested in hearing himself talk than hearing anything I had to say.
Mm,
So all I did was, oh, really? Tell me more. That's
that's interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, what about
right.
that? Huh. Well, that's all I did for like an hour and a half, and I got the job because he thought I was like, you know, really
Oh yeah.
smart. So yeah,
Yeah, boy,
he
you
was,
fooled him, huh?
well, yeah. Well, I fooled myself because he was really an asshole. So I worked for
Well,
him.
that
So
that might have been it. Now you'd
yeah,
see how evident that was in the interview
yeah,
process.
yeah, really. Um, but so I think being a good guest, and I've said this in a number of occasions in the SCA that we both participate in. If you're going to a feast, come with questions, come with stories, talk to people around you. Don't just, get to know people, get to meet people, sit with other
Sure.
people than the people you already know. Meet people, um, have stories. If you if you've had a life and done anything for more than, if you're an adult, you've got stories of your life. Tell them. People are interested, but also be interested in other people's stories.
Right. Right.
And honestly interested, and you'll be a good guest that way. So,
Agreed.
so
All right. Well, this was fun. This is a nice
yeah,
little exercise.
yeah, cool. Okay,
So, um, like we said, be a good guest. And until we see you again, be thou
a good night.
and true.